Good morning to all. Today, the topic for discussion is standardization of academic language in education. The lecture is going to be centered around the need for standardizing academic language in education, especially with reference to English language. So, it's a known fact that as far as academics are concerned, English is the language of study at higher education level. It is used in multilingual context within India. Therefore, the quality of English language education must be improved to reach the national standards in education. In addition to that, there is a steady increase in the demand for English at global level. This invokes the idea of standardizing the national curriculum for English with appropriate competencies to meet the global requirement. To educate the students with standard English, first the teachers of English have to be trained with global benchmarks. This act of refining curriculum for English language ensures considerable quality in acquiring English language competency for teaching and learning process. And when it comes to global economical demands, a person should be proficient in English language. To enjoy the global economical advantage and to widen the market, a worldwide communication is necessary that is possible through mastering English language. In the past context, people who communicate well in English are efficient enough to be in an economically advantageous position. More than that, it helps for people's mobility in the society, because of which people develop a relationship both within and outside the country. Thus, the economical system all over the world support the learning of English as a foreign language. And of course, now in Indian context, English is no more a foreign language; it is a second language. This trend of learning English has practiced increasingly in the past 2 decades, especially after globalization. Most of the countries encourage the students in learning English starting from school education. Slowly, English has become the medium of instruction in most of the countries of higher education, at higher education level especially, and remains the idea of considering English language as a window of the world. With this idea, it is obvious that learning an English language is always an added advantage for an individual. Thus, it is important to implement a curriculum for English on par with the global standards. To meet global standards, it is necessary to construct a well-designed syllabus for English which should constitute the elements of global proficiency standards. Now let us see a brief description about the NCERT, that is National Council of National Council of Educational Research and Training, is a top resource organization established in the year 1961 at the headquarters at New Delhi by the Government of India in order to assist and govern an opinion to the central and the state governments in academic matters connected to school education. The objective of NCERT is to support and give advice to the Ministry of Education and Social Welfare in the field of school education. Therefore, NCERT helps the government to take decision on implementing new policies and major programs in the field of education, especially in school education. The NCERT, which is with its various constitutions, provides academic and practical support for improvement of school education. Presently, the syllabus discussed for English and other subjects need to be researched further. NCERT takes responsibility for research based on school education. However, not much research has been conducted based on needs analysis to enhance the curriculum of English to meet the global standards. Here I mean needs analysis. What is needs analysis? Needs analysis is actually understanding the need of the students by giving a questionnaire to them and asking them what is their need for studying a particular language, and also like collecting the viewpoints of the teacher. Instead of primarily considering only the teacher's opinion on you know uh, setting a syllabus or designing a test and evaluation, it is better to consider the students as well, their feedbacks, valuing their feedbacks. That is what on a whole is called as needs analysis. So that is not actually met with the global standards. Teachers as well as the students should spend maximum time in acquiring academic language, as language is primary criteria for acquiring knowledge from the textbooks. It is the communicative skills such as reading, listening, writing, and speaking skills which strengthens the academic background of the students. The expected student learning outcome at the end of the school education is that students must be talented in all the core subjects, and the students must be good in communication skills and strategies behind it. Thus, realizing the importance of using English as academic language, India government has advocated NCERT of Educational Research and Training to develop a curriculum framework for enhancing the English proficiency of the students to meet the global competition. Global strategies for English proficiency. So now let us see what are the global strategies for English proficiency. Standardization is a global phenomenon. It is applicable in all fields of study. Henceforth, it is applicable in education as well in acquiring English. So no more we can see that standardization is only applicable in science. We should now start seeing that standardization is very much applicable in education too. Standardizing language is indispensable for mobility all around the world. A standardized language will become a global language of teaching. So, and learning, as it has a specific structure and pattern to follow, that in turn is easy for acquisition. Standardization of language works with a set of competencies and with various levels of proficiency to acquire those competencies. If you see the global standards, each of the standards has its own kind of demarcations in segregating the competency levels of the students. Let us see that later. Now we are just talking about the global standards for education for time being. Process of in the context of social sciences, standardization means the process of creating standards of various kinds for improving the efficiency of the people. It deals entirely with people, their interaction, competencies, cases, and so on. It focuses on large-scale social changes such as modernization, bureaucratization, homogenization, and centralization of society. Defining the language with set of competencies and categories, the same based on the levels of proficiency, require the strategic approach of standardization. For more than 3 decades, lot of professionals involved in language testing and training stated sprouting a concept of standardization, a language on basics of competencies and levels, because of which the various global standards came into existence. In the past decade, European countries, the requirements for developing a standard model for English language proficiency testing and evaluation was increasing, because of which the European countries Council of especially the European Council of Education came out with a book called Common European Framework for References for Languages. The Council of Europe's Language Policy Division in 2001 publishes it. It is widely used in number of contexts such as teaching, learning, curriculum formation, training teachers, national competency frameworks, and so on. It is widely consulted for any queries and clarifications regarding English proficiency among the European countries. Later, it is adapted and utilized by various other countries. That is different. Now we are talking only about its application in in European countries. CEFR documents is available in 36 world languages. Majority of teachers accepted and appreciated CEFR document. CEFR can be referred for official documentations such as framing curriculum for foreign language to primary to higher education for assessment, evaluation, and certification of English at various proficiency levels. For strategies, documents on language education for teacher training, for developing language textbooks, language requirements for immigration, minority, civil servants. The Common European Framework has three broad divisions, which is further divided into six levels. That is A1 is the basic level. Let me say that A is a basic speaker, B is an independent speaker, C is a proficient speaker. Basic, independent, and proficiency speaker. Each of this basic, independent and the proficient speaker is further divided into two. That is A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. A1 is a breakthrough or can be called as a beginner level. A2 is a wastage or an elementary level. B independent speaker is divided into further two, that is B1 threshold or pre-intermediate level, B2 vantage or intermediate level. C1 is effective operational proficiency or upper intermediate, or C2 is a mastery or advanced level. So I've also classified these CEFR proficiency levels to that of the NCERT syllabus for English, but that we will see later. Now for that, to make it clear that C1 and C2 is the highest level of proficiency one you can acquire when learning a language. Now let us see the American Council of Teaching for Foreign Languages. As I have told, there are various, there are many, in fact, global standards available specific to the countries. But if you see the earlier one, which evolved is the American Council of Teaching of Foreign Languages, that is popularly called as ACTFL, and CEFR, which is evolved from Europe, like ACTFL emerged from America and CLB evolved from Canada, that is Canadian language benchmarks. But among that, the most popular one is ACTFL and CEFR, and most utilized around the world to develop their own standards according to the country, the people's requirement and demand. So, American Council on Teaching of Foreign Languages is an organization involved in developing the teaching learning process of all languages at all levels of instruction. ACTFL is dedicated to improve the competency level of all languages. It has more than 9,000 foreign language individuals as member of the association. It includes teachers, educators, administrators for primary schools to higher education. ACTFL is actually working more on teacher education. They have also come up with a lot of works related to teacher education. If you are interested in looking at that, you can go and see. But here we have given concentration only both on teaching and learning aspects in this lecture. So one of the first steps towards standardization and accountability in language education came out of collaboration of educators, American Council of Teaching of Foreign Languages, and government agencies, including the interagency language roundtable. That is even the first organization to come up with anything like standardization. That is ILR, the first agency to come up with an idea of standardization, so that it will be helpful for the people all over the world, the Americans living in all over the world. So in 1986, they produced the first set of language proficiency guidelines, the Actual Proficiency Guidelines, a descriptive metric intended to guide proficiency in multiple languages, including listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Performances at all four levels. See, like CFR, we saw three levels, right? Basic, independent, and proficient. Like that, in Actual, they have four major levels. That is novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior level. All these four levels are further divided into three. That explanation I'll give it later. Okay, but for initial at the levels, you see that they have divided into four levels. That is novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior. After some 10 years of reorienting the entire array of language education, the field moved towards the articulation of standards of learning. The process involved proficiency indicator and performance driven goals, objectives, and outcomes on the field. Concurrently, other disciplines, mathematics, science, social studies, and language arts, were produced their national standards in most of the 50 states. For foreign language to maintain their place in a standard-driven arena, language educators need to uh, delineate clear, attainable, mutually agreed upon goals and learners' outcomes. These produce learner standards from kindergarten through post-secondary education. The National Standards in Foreign Language Education Collaborative Project, a consortium of 9 language associations endowed by 46 states, were organized. This national organization presented in the standards for foreign language learning prepared for the 21st century in 1996, and in 1999 the K-16 standards for foreign language learning in 21st century. This is the point where we have to see. If you see our NCERT curriculum, like one of the research papers which I've studied, they have clearly stated that the NCERT curriculum framework for languages is just a K1 to K12 kind of syllabuses. We have not even thought about the K13 to K16 level of standards for English learning, which is actually a drawback for Indian students studying in India. So it's not that only their competency level can be increased up to K-12 level. Once they finish the school education, they come to the college level. They are reading the same thing that in a different form with a different text what they have read in the school level. But there is nothing like extension of K-13 to K-16 levels. So that is the area which we actually have to focus when it comes to Indian context. Actual is always associated with terms such as innovation, creative, quality, validity, and reliability in meeting the needs of the foreign language learners. It plays a leadership role in guiding the various educational instructors in developing a national curriculum for learning language. Thus, ActFill provides an opportunity for sharing current updates, issues related to learning language, critical thinking, and so on. Actual proficiency level, that is novice level. No, as I told you before, each of the four major categories of actual proficiency level, that is novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior, is further divided into two, that is into three. That is, the novice is divided into novice low, novice mid, novice high. That is like low level, medium level, and higher level. So like that, intermediate low level, intermediate medium level, intermediate high level, and then the advanced is again divided into advanced low, advanced middle, advanced high, and then the superior also has some two categories, but they are still working on it to fine tune it and make it as a three branches in the superior level. Now let us see the yet another popular standards benchmarks available for English language. Okay, that is nothing but Canadian language benchmarks. As I told in the first part of the lecture, CLB, it is popularly called. CLB, if you see that they have categorized their proficiency levels from starting from 1 to 12, and Now, currently, if you see the CLB benchmarks, they're working more particularly with the field specific skills related to language, like standards and skills are they have generated separately for nurses, and then separately for engineering students, and separately for law students. So recently that they are working on developing standards specific to their area of work. But CLV in general has got a common framework for references for language learning. Let us see that Canadian government, with the support of board of directors, including representatives from governments, ESL and FSL practitioners and language experts, established Canadian language benchmarking in the year 1998. Canadian language benchmarks in the language proficiency standards used by the English as a second language stakeholder community in Canada. CLB are a common point of reference for language proficiency of adult immigrants. We know very well that Canada has got an umpty number of immigrants from all over the world, of course, to handle the various aspect in which they speak English, no, or write and read English. We need a proper standard, especially to standardize the English of the immigrants in Canada. So that's what they did. Canada has done it. The Center for Canadian Benchmarking is established to develop national standards for CLV. Center for Canadian Language Benchmarking is the organization that promotes excellence in the use of Canadian language benchmarks. The CCLB aids the promotion of these national standards in education, community, training, and workplace settings. The Center for Canadian Language Benchmarks offers the leadership and expertise to safeguard the integrity, promote the use and support applications of Canadian language benchmarks. Canadian language benchmarks establishes the national standards for describing, measuring, and recognizing English language proficiency of adult immigrant and prospective immigrants for living and working in Canada. By referring these global standards, it is clear that based on the needs of individual and the requirement of the countries, the standardization of language is carried out. Therefore, it is essential for people all over the world to identify the needs and cultural requirements while framing the level of proficiency and competency. So, according to the level and the needs requirement of the Indian students, we have to design the standards. It's not that the global standard has come, then we have exactly follow the global standard for setting the standards for Indians is not at all right. So when you are developing standards for English, you also consider the background information of the Indians, like their cultural aspects and their learning style and learning aspects, and then frame and come up with the standards. Now let us discuss. I know it's better to discuss more in Indian context now. So in India, English language is the medium of instruction. It's very much obvious. It is also official language of the country. Therefore, the influence of English is prominent at every part of the country. English language is learned starting from kindergarten through higher education. When compared to other third world countries, English occupies a superior position among the languages of India. Even the educational system follows the nuances of English education system. Based on the observation of these global standards such as CEFR, CLB Actual Proficiency Test, it is obvious that NCERT English curriculum has to be fine-tuned more deeper than now. Yes, it has to be fine-tuned more deeper than now. It is clear that the curriculum of NCERT must be improved to meet the global standards on education by arranging the English language skills of NCERT syllabus to that of the global standards like actual CEFR. It is apparent that structurally NCERT curriculum for English tries to follow the global standards, but functionally the elements of competencies varies at each level. Basic English language skills, which are placed at the lower level of proficiency, are well framed in the NCERT syllabus. I repeat, basic English language skills which are placed at the lower level of proficiency are well framed in the NCERT syllabus. Most of the competencies mentioned in the global standards are represented in the NCERT curriculum for languages for English, except a few. So English skills that occupies higher level of proficiency are not completely utilized in the high school syllabus for English. The NCERT curriculum for English at a high school level has reached only the initial stages of effective operation stage, which is insufficient for the learner of English language. That is, they have only reached the level of independent level speakers, as we mentioned in the CEFR. They have to come up to the advanced level, which is very much important for the students to master the English and be very proficient when they go into outside country, even to work in India itself. To a broad level, English language skills can be divided into beginner, intermediate, and mastery levels. This effective operational level falls under intermediate category, in which the learner of English can write well organized essays, comprehend difficult text, and finish difficult exercises in English as expected to that of global standards. But the NCERT syllabus for English have not completely utilized the skills related to this operational stage. Rather, it restricts with certain skills associated with operational stage. Moreover, it does not focus on the skills listed in the mastery levels. Although NCERT curriculum for English focuses on most of the skills which are listed in global frameworks, the skills that are available at higher levels of operational stage are also necessary to be on par with the global standards of English. I repeat, although NCERT curriculum for languages focuses on most of the skills which are listed in the global frameworks, the skills that are available at higher levels of operational stage are also necessary to be on par with the global standards of English. For students entering higher education in foreign countries require a good command over English language. It is necessary for overseas students, especially students who go abroad fresh from school, to be proficient in most of the English language skills. Countries like UK, US, if you see United Nations, Canada, and Australia, and other European countries also, they demand good proficiency in English language from the overseas students. ACTFL, American Council for Teaching of Foreign Languages Proficiency Guidelines, also advocates that students entering higher education must have efficient operational proficiency in English. So if you see the outside countries, other countries, people are very particular about how much they are competent. They want the students to get all the skills related to operational proficiency. But if you note that NCERT syllabus has not touched all the skills which are required for the students in operational proficiency level. It is a well noticed point. Considering this statement, it is obvious that NCERT curriculum for English at school level must include higher levels of effective operational language skills in the syllabus. In addition, to overcome these global requirements, students have to be well trained at school level in using English for academic purposes. Therefore, to ensure quality education, the curriculum framed for English at school level must pay attention to these uh, issues related to standardization and the need of the students to meet the global standards. Uh, this I want let me summarize. Since we have seen a lot of points, I would like to summarize and crisply say what is the point. After globalization, standardization of English language all around the world is sprouting. There is a need for Indian education system to develop a set of standards for teaching and learning English in order to meet the global requirements. Similar to that of the CEFR, CLV, and ACTFL proficiency standards, an Indian standard for English as an academic language can be initiated with the help of NCERT. The point here is Similar to that of the actual CEFR and CLB, the proficiency standard, Indian standard for English as academic language can be initiated with the help of NCERT. On the other hand, it is the responsibility of the students as well as the teachers to improve their competencies by practicing these global standards. NCERT can effectively involve in the educational research on development of global standards for English language. The standardization of education unites all the nations and acts as a source for global communication. Now let us see the impact of globalization on education. Leaving aside the globalized influence on language learning and education, the lecture will be completed. So now let us see the influence of globalization on education. Since we have crossed more than 20 years of our life under the influence of globalization, it becomes mandatory to understand the impact of globalization on various fields, especially on education. Globalization has influenced, generally, researchers are of view that globalization has influenced social, cultural, familial, economical system of the country. Critics around the world hold optimistic views about the impact of globalization on education. See, since we Indians have crossed almost 2 decades of our life under globalization, it is mandatory to look on the effects that globalization has produced on the country's education system. By observing education and globalization are found closely related to each other. By observation, education and globalization are found to be closely related. Depending upon the country's development, education facilitates globalization. It is also researched and found out that globalization on education has largely benefited developing countries especially. And globalization works as a medium for wide range of cross-border relationship and continuous global flows of people, information, knowledge, products, and technological effects higher education positively. Through globalization of education, developing countries can collect and use excellent resources from developed countries. This is in a way perhaps tend to bridge the gap that existed between developing and developed countries. India has a deep historical roots in education. Initially, the Gurukula system, which imparted traditional and cultural education, was practiced in the society. Later, after the British invasion, education system attained its new form. That Macaulay's education policy, that is a 1835 Macaulay's education policy, makes the beginning of the Western influence on Indian education. It helped to change the traditional and cultural education to scientific and technological education. Nowadays, the government has recognized education as fundamental right, and so every child up to the age of 14 years must undergo compulsory education. Currently, higher education receives a lot of attention as it is expected to be the impart essential skills of survival in this competitive globalized world. The present system of Indian education constitutes three levels of education. These are primary education, secondary education, and tertiary education. Researchers have identified that the larger investment in higher education provides sustainable development of the country as education. So the globalization provides opportunity of for every research university to become a part of a single universal network. From the educational like policies, it is evident that the government of India has realized education is essential for developing human capital. It is expected that these educational investments will lead to scientific and technological innovations, which in turn will positively affect the economic growth of the country. Thus, globalization increases the opportunity for the students in learning their subjects. It facilitates the students to expand their boundaries. It provides platform for collaborative learning. Therefore, globalization is a continuous process that has positive effect, and so India should handle it well enough to improve the overall national standards in education. What could be a standardization in education? How it will be? What is actually standardization in education? Let us see that standardization in all areas of human activity is the best technical application towards refining quality of product and service. Let me repeat it. Standardization in all areas of human activity is the best technical application towards refining quality of product and services. Needless to say that it applies to education too insofar as education is a service rendered for a price with specific outcomes envisaged. In the recent past, serious thoughts have been given to standardizing the learning content for various subjects at various levels, which has, by implication, taken into account the possibility of effective learning. Standardizing education has become essential for globalization. As education plays a vital role in transnational communication, it has become necessary to educate people with standard materials. One of the elements that standardization focuses on is providing standardized curriculum which has scope for implementation at every stage of education. Implementing a standardized curriculum in the classroom is the classroom which ensures systematic learning. Through standardized curriculum, the teacher as well as the student can become aware of the content that needs to be taught or learned in the classroom at every level of learning. Standardized syllabus enables a continuous and vertical process of knowledge acquisition as well as skill development. What could be the facets of standardized education? Let's see that. The concept behind standardized education is to enhance global communication and to equalize the quality of education so that students from various parts of the world come to have minimum differences in learning skills. That is, children around the world should have equal rights to education and equal knowledge acquisition. That is the central idea of it. In other words, students can learn required competency at all levels of schooling in a similar way. By excluding standard general education curriculum at schools and universities, students can receive quality education without differences in learning at various places, irrespective of whether it is a government school or a private school or an American school, or whether it is schools run in Norway. They want to standardize the syllabus in such a way that even a person from a interior village is studying in a government school, and a person from United States studying English should not have a major difference in their learning patterns and proficiency level. There should be only a minimum differences. They're trying to reduce the differences in their learning patterns by standardizing the language education. The target of globalizing the curriculum is to establish similar level of competencies among the students of this same class studying at various places of the country. Once global standards are achieved in education, it incorporates a platform for wider dissemination of knowledge and information. As long as education is highly conventional, it is difficult to provide a similar platform for education throughout the world. Yes, there is a difficulty to do a similar platform, but people are working on it. Especially UNESCO is focusing more on it. This standardization process simplifies the education system. Same objectives for preparing the textbooks and choosing, a reference material can be followed in schools and universities, that reducing the digressions and teaching learning process. So if you want me to summarize the standardization in education, I would say it in two words. That two sentences, that is, a standardizing education becomes imperative to meet the growing demands of globalization and to make the students more competitive. Moreover, it is a move towards reducing differences and increase equality in gaining knowledge and acquiring skills by the students around the world. It's basically to reduce the differences among the knowledge acquisition and language acquisition of the students around the world. As I have told in the initial stages of my lecture, now let us try to validate the NCERT curriculum for English. Ever since education moved into the concurrence list in India and the formation of NCERT, there has been a need for standardizing curriculum for English at school level. Apparently, the activities related to NCERT curriculum levels appears to have no back references to any global frameworks, but actually it has a reference back more to ACFEL framework, that is American Council of Teaching of Foreign Languages framework. It is it is the responsibility of the educators to identify and relate the skills and sub-skills in the NCERT syllabus with their counterpart in actual standardization in order to validate the NCERT curriculum for English. That is the main reason why we have taken the topic for this, taken this as a topic for my lecture. As a part of my lecture, uh, I will outline some of the major correlations between the sub-skills of NCERT curriculum for English and ACFEL proficiency guidelines. Yes, again coming back to the English proficiency, it has a global demand, and English language needs are very much there for Indian citizens. The ability to communicate in English has become a distinct advantage in an Indian context. It's obvious that the person who lacks operational efficiency in communicating in English is in a disadvantageous position. Therefore, in a country like India, the agency for the formulation of educational policy at the school level, that is NCERT, has recognized this global trend at the school level is important, and NCERT has recognized this global trend and has rightly emphasized the need for standardizing the process of acquisition of communication skills in English. The government has decided to educate all the children to learn English language straight from grade 1, like since learning of grade 1 to like till their higher education. The study of English language proceeds from schooling to higher education. The NCERT framework is the basis for the school level curriculum for all the subjects in India in both private and government schools, since they are affiliated to one or the other boards of primary or secondary education. The central idea of behind this implementation is to provide the students education on par with today's global standards, that is, global needs. Students should spend an optimum time in learning English language at school level. Yes, curriculum has given much priority to the communication skills. The expected learning outcome at the end of the higher education is high in learning English is that of the students must that, the curriculum is designed as we have told before. Um is the expected outcome at the end of the school, like at the end of the higher education and learning English, is that of the student must be good in communication skills and strategies behind it. Uh, so should be on par with the K-12 standards acquired with the actual and also the same as that of NCERT 12th standard exit of the students. That is what I'm trying to say. So the government has framed NCERT, that is the National Council of Educational Research and Training, to develop the curriculum framework for English to enhance English proficiency of the student to meet the global competition. So now let us try to trace out the sub-skills related to NCERT curriculum and how it is like matching with the already existing ACTFL K-12 standards for English. Ever since education moved into the concurrence list, I said that at NCERT they are trying to standardize the language, and it is surprising to see that most of the skills that are mentioned at basic level and the intermediate level are matching rightly with the global matching to the global standards. Basic level skills are exactly going with the like ACTFL, the basic level, and NCERT basic level skills are almost going equal. When it comes to the intermediate levels also, the lower level of intermediate proficiency acquired by the students, an Indian student in their school, and the lower level of skill, lower level intermediate proficiency as said in the ACTFL are all also equal. The difference started coming when it is the higher intermediate level. So once the students crosses 8th standard, they are about to face some of the higher level intermediate skills in language, like in LSRW skills, that is listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills, and that's where the difference comes in. It's like we can say that the operational proficiency level also starts with higher intermediate level. So exactly when the need for operational standards comes in, then the our Indian students become sturdy and they are lacking the skills exactly required. So we have to now start. Let us see, like I have just correlated some of the sub skills of NCERT and ACTFL, and let me explain it to you further. So what are the correlations between NCERT and ACTFL? Both ACTFL and NCERT frameworks have a similar purposes. Starting from the objective, I'm saying, like based on what objectives they have framed the syllabus, and based on what requirement they have come up with English syllabus, and based on what like vision they are teaching English. Let us start comparing it like from the beginning. They've started, the framework has a similar purpose. They are set on the basis of the need and the process towards acquisition of the second language. These frameworks intend to develop a profound communication competence among the students on a lifelong basis. Yes. Both Indian context also, they want learning, especially language learning or any kind of learning for a lifelong basis, and the global standards also aspires like make students aspire that. It aims to develop an independent and critical thinking ability of the students from elementary through high school level, based on which the issues related to the curriculum framework, distribution of completeness, assessment, evaluation, testing of the skills pertaining to the various levels of schooling are planned and executed. So that kind of critical thinking ability starts at the higher intermediate level, to put it in record, that that is the higher intermediate level of the ACTFL standards, I mean. The objective of the actual proficiency guidelines seems to exactly match with the vision of framing the English language curriculum in India. English in India serves as a link language across diverse linguistic communities. So, the demand for learning English in India is not restricted to academic matter. Rather, it becomes essential for meeting the current needs in social and political issues. The central idea of curriculum development is to develop Indian mobility, irrespective of the language, diversity. The holistic vision of the syllabus is to be developed communicative language proficiency for achieving multicultural competency among the Indians. So NCERT curriculum has elaborated the actual framework for developing uh, content and performance standards in language learning. The relationship between the standards is explicitly reflected in the content and the performance standards. Content standards can be defined as the clarity of thought on what must be taught in the language classrooms. Okay, the criteria of allocation of the subject matter is developed based on the requirement of the various states and local schools. Any NCERT curriculum framework has clearly formulated the expected student outcome of how well students need to acquire the competency and the sub skills. It has described the performance standards more efficiently in comparison to actual. That is, the NCERT has described it more efficiently than actual. It has divided the performances into 6 various domains, such as comprehensible, that is how well is the student understood, how well the students have understood, and second is comprehension, how well does the student understand, language control, how accurate is the student's language, vocabulary usage, how extensive and applicable is the student's language. That is, first is whether they understood, if they understand, how much they have understand, if they understand whether they have understood it accurately, is there any vocabulary that is difficult, or the last one is the communication strategy, how well they can maintain their communication after understanding all these things. So the last but not the least, we should also account cultural awareness, how is their cultural understanding is reflected in the communication. So all these things has to be accounted. Act file also refers all these things. Actually, in fact, these terminologies were clearly explained in the Acts file 1982 document of proficiency guidelines. If you want, you can go and refer to it. Thus, with the introduction of content and performance standards of actual proficiency guidelines, I just have I want to say some points in that. From November 1982 onwards, students, language teachers, school administrators, parents, and other official educational organization have clearly understood the development path that second language learning has acquired with the school setting. This awareness has initiated the standard-based language learning program from K-12 learners in various countries, and India has joined the band. India has also joined the band, and that's why we can see that there is a similarity in the setup of school curriculum of India on par with the global standards. But what we're trying to say is we have to much more increase on the operational setting and the advanced standards required in language learning. So the actual proficiency guidelines for K-12 learners are divided into 3 modes, as we told. Um, we have now talked about the levels, but here what I'm mentioning is the 3 modes of communication. That is interpersonal, interpretive, and presentation. The NCERT curriculum has not referred directly to these modes of communication in curriculum. So that has to be mentioned. What kind of skills? What are the skills that are contributing to interpersonal communication? What are the skills that are contributing to interpretive communication? And what they are contributing to presentational can be clearly mentioned so that the teachers who are going to teach the skills will have a better understanding of for what particular enhancement of communication they are teaching a such and such a sub skill. Okay, so and like in turn, if you see that they have not reflected, as I told, the modes of communication in curriculum in Indian NCERT curriculum, and the competencies related to these interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational skills have been strategically arranged at the respective standards from standard 1 to 10 of the syllabus. It has to be arranged. The unique thing which is identified with the NCERT curriculum is that the framework has suggested the topic for the passage which needs to prescribe based on the cultural specific value implication. So they have also chosen the text, the lessons that they are choosing. They are also culturally important texts they are choosing, and then they are giving, even though they have not clearly mentioned the modes. That is why the what are the skills related to, interpersonal, interpretive, or presentational. We can see that they are beautifully, they are very strategically arranged these um, skills, sub skills in an order from standard 1 to standard 2. That is one unique thing that we have to give acknowledge and give a credit to NCRT curriculum framework designers. And now let me give some alignment relationship of NCRT and ACTFL in terms of sub skills. Relationship between ACTFL and NCRT can be justified with the sequential alignment of NCRT with ACTFL framework. By fixing the ACTFL and NCRT framework side by side, following discussions are derived. The structural features of these frameworks well collide with one another. NCRT curriculum has utilized similar wording for constructing the standards of language proficiency. It emphasized the vertical alignment in which skills such as speaking, listening, reading, and writing are arranged. The educational system of India divides the schools into primary, middle, and high, as I already told. Primary school level consists of class from 1 to 5, middle school level consists of class from 6 to 8, and the high school level consists of class 9 and 10. The descriptors of the active proficiency guidelines of the K-12 learners are arranged in a ascending order from K1 to K-12. The descriptors of the NCRT are also arranged in the same manner, in which, depending upon the complexity in acquiring the skill sets, the competencies are aligned vertically. By the analysis of the English proficiency standard, it is obvious that the competency framework for English language at school level has been equally distributed depending upon the various levels and classes. The skills and sub-skills are arranged in an ascending order with respect to age-specific competencies. The curriculum is well developed and well designed so that it helps to fine tune the language skills and to track the step-by-step development of skills. The skill sets acquired at primary level become the foundation for learning the advanced skills at other classes. The advanced skills here I mentioned is the next level, the intermediate skills and all these things. The education at school is classified into primary, middle, and higher levels of education, in which primary school level consists of classes from 1 to 5, which is on par with the skills level of actual. And if you see the syllabus, the framework, that whatever lessons they have given and all is well connected to the global standards. But where comes the problem? That is the thing. If, of course, it is in the hands of the teachers. If they handle the tool and if they handle the textbook that they have given to them in a proper way, then as expected by this 21st century education, the gap between the students acquiring English in a remote village and the student acquiring English in a like English medium or in other countries can be reduced. Thus, by analyzing the data, it is clear that these margins are well demarcated. The language skills specified at one level are not repeated at the other level. The repetition of the competencies are noticeable within the levels. That is, the competencies described at the primary level are repeated within the classes from 1 to 5, but it is not repeated at the middle and the high school level. This holds the same between the middle and the high school level. Therefore, the point to be noticed is that the students' inadequacy at the exit level behavior at the primary stage will affect the further studies. In turn, if the student is not proficient in using some of the English skills, then the inadequacy in proficiency is maintained due to the lack of acquisition of those skills at the previous levels of the study. This statement is not prejudiced against the teacher. That is the thing. Considering all these views, if we analyze the data provided, defining the competencies at its respective classes, it is obvious that the NCRT framework of English language learning is well arranged, well constructed, well designed, and well thought out. It is provided a holistic perspective of the process of acquiring English language skills within a pedagogic framework. Therefore, the teacher can take the curriculum in confidence and proceed to teach English. So, therefore, it is the teacher's responsibility to find out the mismatch that exists between the curriculum requirement and the student's outcome at the end of the class. It is clear that NCERT syllabus for English is not evolved out of vagueness. The NCERT curriculum for English language learning has a holistic perspective which extends to meet the global standards. Therefore, the teacher teaching English anywhere from class 1 to 10 must be aware of the course content of all classes so that they can get a holistic perspective of the curriculum. This is this can be made possible by conducting workshops, seminars, and conferences for the teachers teaching English to primary, middle, and high schools. It is very essential that a teacher teaching English for class 1 must be aware of the skills that are taught at all the class from class 2 to 5. Similarly, from teachers teaching English from class 5 must know the skills that the student is supposed to have learned acquired from class 1 to class 4 and the skills that they need to acquire from class 6 to class 10. At the same time, teachers teaching English class 10 must be aware of the skills that the students should have acquired from class 1 to class 9. This holds that the same for the teachers teaching in all the classes from class 1 to class 10. Thus, the teacher can have a holistic idea about the curriculum in order to practice new technologies, pedagogy for effective teaching inside classrooms. Complete knowledge of the framework enables the teachers to identify the inadequacy of the students on particular skills and remediation can be made immediately at the point of time. So, overall, what I'm trying to say is that the earlier competency framework of English has an outdated definition of English proficiency levels. The lack of standard methods for evaluation, assessment, and quality in acquiring skills was a major drawback in teaching and learning English. Therefore, it is good that NCERT has back reference to existing global standards. Two different sets of frameworks for English such as ACTFL and NCERT are correlated in terms of equivalence to justify the validity of NCERT framework of English. Revising of the NCERT framework for English is to refine the education system of India and adapt to the new trends and techniques in the learning process of English. Therefore, NCERT curriculum for English is rarefied form of ACTFL proficiency guidelines. Since ACTFL is calibrated with finer sets of descriptors from novice till advanced learners, it is quite natural to utilize the richness of ACTFL for further advancements in language learning. Thus, NCERT has simplified the competencies and modeled it according to the requirement at the school level. It has localized the ACTFL framework depending upon the relevance, utility, value, implication, and social consequence of the Indian education system. Therefore, utilizing the curriculum for teaching English is established and validated with NCERT curriculum for languages, academic language in education with that in respect to English. Thank you very much for listening the lecture.